What's going on, MMA fans? I'm back to do a collaborative video segment. I actually have a couple of these to do this week, two of which. Both of these are going to be done with another person that also does videos here on YouTube. As always, like I always say, any of the other guys here in the MMA YouTube community that do videos, do predictions, feel free to leave some input, some comments, do video responses. And for the viewer, the watcher, the subscriber, not only of my channel, but of any of the channels here on YouTube of MMA, feel free to leave your input on these subjects as well. The first one that I'm going to be doing is going to be a collaborative segment with Karsten, the MMA analyst, also known as DoliveIJ, D-O-L-I-V-E-I-J. If you haven't checked his channel out, make sure you check it out. Very knowledgeable guy. He's very, very insightful, has good knowledge of the sport. Very, very well-rounded guy as far as his knowledge, how he translates it into his videos. Also throws some humor in there, so make sure you check him out. The topic that was posed was George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva. Now, we came up, between me and Carson, we came up with some questions that kind of are important questions to this subject, and to see, how not only our opinions differ, but, anyone else's differ on the subject. And I think we're all going to have different opinions, and, that's great. That's the beauty of the sport. We all want to have our own opinions about the sport, and we're all entitled to them. And if we didn't have different opinions, discussions about the sport wouldn't be fun. But GSP Anderson Silva, this has been in, the talks off and on. We've heard minutely from both guys. George St. Pierre has mentioned it, that maybe in the future this is a possible fight. We've heard Anderson Silva allude to it a little bit. Not get into depth. Neither fighter's gotten really into depth about this subject, but they have talked about it. We've heard Dana White talk about if George St. Pierre beats Thiago Alves, if Anderson Silva beats Thales Leites, if da-da-da-da-da happens, this could be a fight that happens possibly at a catchweight. So the questions that are posed here is, what does it take for this to happen? We kind of just covered that. One, both of these guys really need to clean out their respective divisions. Now, some can make the argument that Anderson Silva has already beaten a majority of the guys in that division. There are still some, and when I say this, there still are some intriguing matchups for him. One of which, Thales Leites, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. If he can put, Anderson Silva on the ground, put him in a precarious position, there are some, possible rough spots that he could put him in. Is it likely? That's left up to interpretation. You still, many want to see the rematch of Yushin Okami. That's one fight that I know I would want to see. That's definitely a fight I would look forward to. Some had talked about Demian Maia, Husmar Paharis. Dennis Kang unfortunately lost. There was one that many talked about to see if that would be an interesting matchup. Vanderlei Silva's moving down to 185. There's another interesting matchup that could possibly happen down the road. So they both have some fights, at least one or two, that they need to, I think, get out of the way. GSP, Thiago Alves, and then whoever else is in line right after Thiago Alves. And really after Alves, there's not too many guys at 170 that are right there. There are a couple, but I think once he beats Alves, with the exception of, like I said, maybe one or two guys, he's kind of at a crossroads of who else does he fight now. So this fight is a possibility. It could happen. Is it a good fight for both guys? No, definitely not. And when I say this is at least in my opinion. George St. Pierre is a big one, a big welterweight, big for 170. At a catchweight fight with Anderson Silva cuts down between, and I've heard in the past, from 215, 220 at times. Usually it's around 215 that he cuts down from to 185. That's his walk-around weight. He has been higher than that. I've heard him walking around at 220, and then he does some serious training, cutting down right before he does his cut, with the sweatsuit and stuff before the weigh-ins. So, this is technically for George St. Pierre not a good fight, and you have to understand that should we see a Rich Franklin-esque knockout delivered to George St. Pierre, it could be devastating for the rest of his career. If he goes back down to 170 and let's say someone is at the level of him at that point after this fight happens, not saying that there is, but someone can really give him problems and challenge him. If he's not the same as what he was, then you're going to see a dismantled person. Many are now talking about BJ Penn now that losing to George St. Pierre, even with the whole grease skate thing. But the way that he lost, that was going to detriment and kill his hunger, because he's always believed that he wanted to just attain big goals, like having the belt at 155, having the belt at 170. When you lose those things that you try to attain, and you get devastated in a way that only a fighter can understand, or even like a devastating knockout, sometimes you don't recover from that, and that's something that is definitely a thing to keep in mind for George St. Pierre. For Anderson Silva, I think most people would agree that 9 times out of 10, and again, at least in my opinion, he should win that fight. I think that it's for either guy, it's an interesting fight. It's a super fight, but really for George St. Pierre, it's not the best fight in the world. For Anderson Silva, could he find more stiffer competition? Yes, he could move up to 205, which is what he's been doing off and on. So, what would happen? I kind of just hit on that. I think 9 times out of 10, Anderson Silva wins this fight. It's just realistically, even at a catch weight, it's not a good fight for George St. Pierre all around. You're dealing with a guy that is a technical striker in Anderson Silva, devastating in the clinch, good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, good wrestling skills now, and it's improved. You saw that with how he did to Nate Marquardt with the wrestler switch. I think that Anderson Silva, 9 times out of 10, should win this fight. And what I like to see it as well as others, it's a super fight. Personally, like I said, I don't think it's a good fight for George St. Pierre. Would I like to see it? If they put it on, would I not watch it? No, I would watch it. Would others watch it? I'm sure they would. They want to see what would happen between a guy like George St. Pierre and a guy like Anderson Silva. People would watch that. There's no doubt about it. But personally, I don't think, to me, as intriguing as it sounds, and as big as a win would be for George St. Pierre if he pulled that off, I don't think it's the best matchup in the world for George St. Pierre. I think it's a really bad matchup for him. So I wouldn't mind seeing it if it was put on and the UFC did put it on. I would watch it. There's no doubt about that. But like I said, I think it's a bad matchup. So leave some comments, constructive, negative, positive. Like I said, the fellow guys here in the MMA YouTube community that do videos, feel free to do responses, video responses, leave comments. For you, the viewer, the watcher, the subscriber, leave comments, suggestions, things that you feel about this subject. As always, check out my sponsors over here at the end of the video. And on that note, you guys, have a great day.